The views, opinions, and content of this show are those of the host, guests, and callers. They do not necessarily reflect those of St. Johns County Council on Aging, Cook Broadcasting LLC, its owners, partners, affiliates, assigns, or heirs. Good morning, St. Johns County. Welcome to the weekly radio show of the St. Johns County Council on Aging, better known in our community as COA. We are your local nonprofit agency that for over 50 years has been leading and advocating for the dignity and independence of St. Johns County seniors and responding to their changing needs. I am your host, Carolyn Carger, Communications Coordinator for COA, broadcasting to you live from the studio of WFOY 102.1 FM, your local radio station for news, sports, and talk. This morning, I am thrilled to be joined by Debra Mullin, speech and language pathologist and therapist at STARS Rehab. Thank you, Debra, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Debra, please tell us about yourself and a little bit about STARS Rehab.
My name is Debra Mullin. I'm a transplant here from up north, but absolutely love St. Augustine. I've lived here for a number of years. In fact, I truly feel like St. Augustine no longer, is truly my home versus me saying there are a lot of people who say, oh, I'm going to go back home to where they are from. But I feel like, no, St. Augustine is my home. STARS Rehab is a facility. Actually, it's multiple facilities now. It was started in 2008 by David Lamaglio and his wife, Melanie. And they really wanted to create an outpatient center with one-on-one rehab. That's one of the things that's very different about STARS, is that if you go to outpatient rehab, quite often you'll have a therapist that's working with multiple patients at the same time. But at STARS, it's individualized treatment, one-on-one. And the other thing that STARS really does is it puts a lot of emphasis on education. And so you really know that you're going to have individuals that are working with you that are really at the top of their field. And they may look young because I'm a 59-year-old that looks around at some of the young people that are in our discipline right now and think to myself, these are my kids' age. But at the same time, they're incredibly knowledgeable and they're wonderful to work with.
It makes sense because a lot of times professionals that are just coming out of school will also have been trained in some of the latest.
Yes.
Latest education and technology. Well, today, the reason why you're here with me is to talk about Parkinson's disease. So can you tell us a little bit about Parkinson's disease and its effects?
Yes. When people think of Parkinson's, they typically will think about tremors and stiff muscles and slow movement. But I'm kind of here to educate and let people know that although these are some of the first symptoms you may notice, one of the things that they've determined is that by the time you might receive a diagnosis of Parkinson's, you may have had it for almost 10 years. And some of the things that you don't realize are some of the changes that happen with your respiration, your breathing, that becomes smaller. And that can take those muscles of respiration and cause atrophy and cause problems in the future. Your voice and your swallow function, they're powered by the same muscles, but those muscles can atrophy over time if you're not using strong, big muscle movements. So even changes with cognition can occur with Parkinson's. And so there are a number of things that occur that people don't realize it is part and parcel for Parkinson's.
Okay. Well, is it considered a neurological disorder?
It is. They used to think that it started in the brain. And one of the reasons that they believe that is because it involves the control of dopamine. And dopamine comes through our brain, and we have a lot of innervation through our vagus nerve to all of the different muscles that allow for that movement. Now there's more and more information coming out about the gut-brain axis, that what we eat makes a difference, about things like mental health and how mental health can play a factor in Parkinson's. And there are also a number of other diagnoses that can be associated with Parkinson's.
Do they have an idea of what causes Parkinson's disease?
So it's not that it's unknown, it's that they're still trying to suss it out, and that there are so many types of Parkinson's So, for example, there's Parkinson's and Parkinsonism. Parkinson's is what we typically would think with the rigidity, slow muscle movement, the stiff muscles. They also have a number of other types of Parkinsonisms, including CBD, MSA, PSP. So there are other diagnoses that are linked with Parkinson's, including Lewy body dementia, that are all kind of under that big umbrella of Parkinson's.
And how common is Parkinson's disease?
So it's becoming more common. And years ago when I met Melanie Lamaglio, one of the things that she had indicated is she really predicted that Parkinson's was going to be on the rise, and that it was going to be similar to a pandemic in its proportions. And we are seeing larger volumes of people who are being diagnosed with Parkinson's. They believe that some of the risk factors include things like your pesticides, well water, ongoing exposure to certain toxins like heavy metals. Genetics can play a factor, but that's also a small percentage of the cases.
Does Parkinson's tend to develop at a certain age or in a certain age group?
So at one time, and some of the research that you'll find online will talk about that age is one of the risk factors, and that, whenever people are closer to their 70s or their 80s, they may see some of the symptoms to a greater degree. But that really isn't something that we can take for granted anymore. We're seeing young onset Parkinson's. So I have a friend who was diagnosed recently, and she was diagnosed at 57. And so truly Parkinson's is changing in its approach, or we're getting much better at identifying and providing earlier treatments, because the earlier you can receive those treatments and get involved in some of the therapies involved, the better the quality of life will be, and the slower the progression should be.
Well, that's good news that there are therapies. So we are about to take a break, our first commercial break. We will be right back to start talking about some of those therapies and ways that you can be empowered if you're dealing with a Parkinson's diagnosis. We'll be right back after these messages on the COA Radio Show on WFOY 102.1 FM. Welcome back to the COA Radio Show on WFOY 102.1 FM, your local radio station for news, sports, and talk. I am COA's Carolyn Carger, and today I am joined by our guest, Debra Mullin, a speech and language pathologist and therapist with STARS Rehab. And Debra, before we went to the break, we are talking today about Parkinson's disease. And I wanted to ask, how important is an early diagnosis of Parkinson's disease?
So I want to encourage individuals that think they may have signs and symptoms of Parkinson's to suss it out, and to try. I want to encourage you to try to speak to your physician and your care team because early detection can make a difference for the quality of life. And so one of the things that they've discovered is that exercise is a very effective tool at slowing the progression of Parkinson's. So the earlier you can get involved with specific exercise programs, not necessarily, I'll have people who say, I exercise all the time. I swim 3 times a week. And swimming is absolutely wonderful. But there are specific exercises that are targeted that can slow the progression of Parkinson's. And so typically the type of exercise program that would be required is more of like a HIIT type program, that high intensity interval training. And then with Parkinson's, if you use multitasking with Parkinson's, dual task programming, that also can really blend and help maintain that cognition, and also try to help you reduce the progression and slow that progression of Parkinson's.
What kind of symptoms would you notice that might make you want to go and meet with your doctor and discuss Parkinson's with them? So
perhaps a quieter voice. If people with Parkinson's will feel like their voice is plenty loud, but will feel like that they will indicate, my husband or my wife, they have a hearing loss. They just can't hear me well because their hearing is not good. And so, in fact, I had a gentleman that he had his wife get herself tested 3 different times and was told 3 different times that her hearing was within functional limits. But he believed so much that he had a powerful voice and that she just wasn't able to hear it correctly. So that quieter voice. Sometimes brain fog, where you feel like you're having trouble with multitasking. That's maybe a sign or symptom that you might be dealing with. Balance issues, and maybe falls. Difficulty because people typically think, oh, it's just the tremor. And then they'll try to also explain away tremors. And so perhaps one of the things also you're looking for is if you start having more difficulty picking up and holding things, and you discover that, yes, during any type of action, I may have that tremor and I'm starting to drop things a little bit more often.
So, what kinds of therapies are helpful for those dealing with Parkinson's?
Where our model at the Parkinson's Health Center is physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy that works concurrently with movement disorder specialists and your primary care physicians to try to create a program that will truly make a difference in your life. This program, there are a number of free classes that are funded through Rebloom, the nonprofit agency that Melanie Lamaglio has started. So she has 2 free classes a week that are for speech and for your respiration and to help with the muscles involved in swallowing, and they're loud crowd, and then also sing out loud. She has power classes that are specific exercises to help people with Parkinson's. She also has yoga. And then now they've added in classes for caregivers. And so there's a wonderful strength training classes for caregivers of individuals with Parkinson's.
How wonderful. Well, today we were going to talk about what the role of speech therapy is in Parkinson's treatment. And you are the right person to tell us about that.
So speech works with swallow, function, respiratory support, cognitive linguistic skills, and muscle movements for the voice and your speech. And so I'll have a lot of individuals that come in and say, oh, I really just want to work with my swallowing, or I really just want to work with my voice. And one of the things that goes through the back of my mind is these are the same muscles that you're utilizing, but just for different purposes. So if we are doing exercises for the voice, that's going to help with your swallow. If we're doing exercises for the swallow function, it's going to really help with your voice. One of the benefits of seeing a speech therapist direct in person is that we have so many more tools than we had in the past. I'm an older speech therapist. I know this is radio and you can't see me, but I am not somebody who is young and straight out of school. And at one time, we didn't have all the wonderful tools that we have now. So we have the ability to measure the amount of muscle movement you're using whenever you swallow. And we can detect if you are using the correct musculature for your voice, or if you're starting to use muscles that your body is recruiting to help with your actual vocal folds. So for example, if you're doing an online exercise program that you found, perhaps just doing a search, and maybe you found like the Speak Out program, which is an excellent program that's available for free online. You want to make sure that you're actually using the correct muscles to exercise. Otherwise, all that time, all that effort, I'm not going to say it's wasted, but it's just not going to give you the bang for your buck that you would like.
So that's very interesting. And when is speech therapy intervention recommended for Parkinson's?
So you don't want to wait. A lot of people will see speech therapy as icing on the cake. The first things that they notice are the things that are the most visual. And so they'll notice that they're taking smaller steps next to the individual they're walking next to. And so they'll say, oh, I've got to work on that. I've got to increase my stride length. Well, with speech therapy, it's different. It's things that you can't see. So a lot of people will say, oh, I'll wait and take care of that when it becomes a problem. But the important part is getting intervention early, because it's much easier to keep something going than to try to play catch up. So if you're waiting until the last minute and saying, okay, I'm going to wait till I have problems with my swallow before I start, then you're trying to play catch up. And it's much more difficult to do that than just to keep those big muscle movements going for your swallow.
So that's a good reason to get an early diagnosis as well.
Oh, absolutely. And 80% of people with Parkinson's will, at some point in Parkinson's, develop dysphagia. And dysphagia is difficulty with the swallow function. And our primary concern is aspiration because I shouldn't say it's a primary concern because also dysphagia can lead to dehydration and malnutrition. But dysphagia itself is difficulty with the swallow function. And that occurs because your muscle movements get smaller, just like with your muscle movements for walking or your muscle movements for breathing. Anything that's autonomic, anything you don't have to think about and you do, that's autonomic muscle movements. And those muscle movements are the ones that typically get smaller. And because those muscle movements get smaller, then it leads you at more risk for food or liquid perhaps entering the airway and then causing upper respiratory infections, pneumonia, and even death.
So what would you say happens when people delay speech therapy after they have a diagnosis?
So trying to come in late to the game and make a difference is possible, but it's incredibly difficult. And so the earlier that you can get in and get started with the specific exercises that can make a difference, and also have people that are there with you and working with you to help manage some of the symptoms and manage some of the difficulties associated with Parkinson's, you're going to have better quality of life.
It makes me think of the old adage, use it, don't lose it.
That's exactly one of the things that we say. We say use it or lose it. And the other one that we say is that it has to be taxing. So when you're doing any of these type of exercises, that really has to be big. If it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. That's actually a moniker that is up in the Parkinson's Health Center on the wall to motivate all the individuals that are there and that are really trying to allow themselves that good quality of life.
So let us know, we're about to come up on a commercial break soon, but let us know where people can find STARS Rehab online and the centers that you mentioned.
Yes. So there are two important centers that you can look for online. One of them is starsrehab.org, and it lists all the different locations that we have, including the Parkinson's Health Center. And then we also have a Rebloom website that is rebloomcenter.org. And both of those are involved to try to help become part of your team to make a difference for you as you progress or as you move through Parkinson's.
And what is the phone number if people want to call?
So the phone number at the Parkinson's Health Center is 904-201-1080.
Wonderful. Now I have a question. Does Parkinson's have effects on your cognition or your memory?
Oh, absolutely. And primarily, it can cause problems with executive dysfunction.
Okay. So you're saying Parkinson's can also impact your thinking, your cognition, and your memory?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. It's the loss of brain cells that are specifically in an area that controls executive dysfunction.
Okay. Well, when we get back, we will talk more about that. That music means we're about to go to a brief commercial break, and we'll be right back after these messages on the COA Radio Show on WFOY 102.1 FM. Welcome back to the COA Radio Show on WFOY 102.1 FM, your local radio station for news, sports, and talk. I'm COA's Carolyn Carger, and today I am happy to be joined by Debra Mullin, who is a speech and language pathologist and therapist at STARS Rehab. Debra, before we went on the last break, you had started to talk about executive dysfunction in Parkinson's patients. Can you explain what that means?
Absolutely. So cognitive linguistic changes can occur very slowly over time, so it's hard to detect the changes as they occur. But 8 out of 10 patients with Parkinson's will start to display executive dysfunction. And executive dysfunction includes planning and difficulty with planning and organizing, setting goals and breaking them into smaller, more manageable steps. Initiation, starting new tasks or activities. Task shifting, meaning adapting or switching between different tasks or different ways of thinking. So you may be doing something and you have to focus on just one thing at a time. An inhibitory control. And that would be resisting distractions or impulsive behaviors, feeling like if you're in a busy or crowded room that you have trouble focusing on just one thing. Working memory. This is the one that most people will come in with, holding and manipulating information in your mind. And this is different than long-term memory. So people will say to me, my memory is fine. I can remember my address from when I was a child. And that's a different area of the brain. Working memory is more about, did you take your medication this morning? What time was that medication? Maybe information about what did you eat for dinner last night? That type of thing. That's more your working memory. And then problem solving, finding solution to challenges becomes more difficulty. But one of the things that they've discovered fairly recently that also is accompanied with all of these other signs and symptoms is apathy, lack of motivation, and difficulty initiating goal-directed behavior. And the number one thing that people will come in with, and they'll say, but that's okay. Most people my age are having difficulty with this. And that's word finding. That's that, can you get me that thingy over there? That thingy on top of the other thing. That truly is that word retrieval that is in the hippocampus. And that hippocampus, it's kind of magical because in the last 12 years, they've learned that through individualized treatment, you can create new cells in the brain to try to replace those cells that have been lost.
Wow, that is amazing. And again, I think about use it, don't lose it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a good time, I think, for me to bring up an original program that COA created called IMEP, which is the Integrative Memory Enhancement Program. And it was created by COA as a dynamic and an innovative response to memory loss. So this is a structured research-based program that integrates the mind, the body, and the brain connections to boost cognitive reserve and to combat the progression of memory loss or dementia. So the way the IMEP does this is it employs specific cognitive and physical exercises that are designed for seniors, and it utilizes healing modalities that support overall brain and body function. So it comes in multiple packages. It is offered in a 2-hour, a 3-hour, and a 5-hour program that includes lunch. And the important thing to know is it's presented in a relaxed and supportive classroom environment that encourages camaraderie. This is a program for adults who do not need nursing care to participate. But if you're noticing memory changes, you can come to the 2-hour program. If you are somewhat having more difficulty or you're further along in your diagnosis, you can come to one of the longer programs. It's also a great respite resource for your caregiver because you can go there, have a great time. And I hear such wonderful things about how the participants feel and also their caregivers when they start working on it. Again, the use it, don't lose it adage really comes into play here too.
Absolutely.
So what participants report is it's a very lighthearted atmosphere, and it includes authentic dialogue and engaging social interaction. And each day focuses on a different brain topic. So, for example, flexible thinking or spatial orientation, communication or reasoning. And then the day's activities support and stimulate that brain function. And really, the program provides a dignified and supportive and non-judgmental environment. So if you've gotten a memory loss diagnosis or dementia diagnosis, this is a place where you can go and you can feel at home. You can relax. You can feel like you're not being judged. It's very supportive and accepting. And it's an incredibly empowering thing you can do when you're faced with a diagnosis that might be very scary.
Right.
That there's something you can do, similar to what Debra's talking about with the therapy that she provides. It's really great to know that you can take action.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. To address these issues.
That I really respect what you're doing because to try to do that as a group is incredibly difficult because people are at so many different levels. One of the things that we really focus on is individualized treatment for executive dysfunction, because what you want to try to do is you want to try to create taxing tasks, and you're going to laugh at the taxing tasks. It's a number of the tasks that we used to do that we didn't really realize that were so good for the brain. So, for example, balancing our checkbooks, computing tax. Even now, today, like we no longer balance our checkbooks typically because we receive a readout of that. And so that's a task that we no longer do. We no longer memorize phone numbers as we're walking to the wall, and then we dial the phone number. And each time we try to dial that phone number, we're saying it in our head, 904-465-7011, over and over again. The most recent thing that I see that we've made easier for ourselves, but that's encouraging the loss of these cells, is computing our own tax, our tip. So right now you can see at the bottom of our receipts, they tell you exactly how much you should tip, and they give you choices. All of these things are leading to what they call brain rot for the average individual. But for somebody with Parkinson's, it puts you at more risk for cognitive dysfunction. And 8 out of 10 people with Parkinson's will experience problems with cognitive dysfunction that may move into Parkinson's dementia.
So is that the type of therapy that you'll do, is give people tasks to complete?
We do, and we use an interactive format that's available through apps because and people may say, oh, I'm not comfortable with an iPad. That's not something I do, but it is so user-friendly. And in 2020, one of the programs that I use quite a bit, they were wonderful because they really listened to the speech therapist and they changed their formats. So many of those tasks can be blended with voice tasks. So instead of doing voice therapy for yourself at home, separate from the cognitive linguistic therapy, you can do one-stop shopping and do both. It makes it ideal to keep those muscle movements and those thought processes going.
Well, that's great to hear. So that music means we're about to go to a brief commercial break, but we'll be right back after these messages on the COA Radio Show, WFOY 102.1 FM. Welcome back to the COA Radio Show on WFOY 102.1 FM, your local radio station for news, sports, and talk. I'm COA's Carolyn Carger, and I am joined today by our guest, Debra Mullin, who is a speech and language pathologist and therapist at STARS Rehab. Debra, could you share with our audience some good places where people can learn about Parkinson's disease if you or a family member have questions about it or have received a diagnosis?
Absolutely. First and foremost, I should mention Rebloom because Melanie has created a program called Rebloom, and Rebloom encourages socialization and has a number of classes. And the reason that Rebloom exists is to try to provide education to the members with the knowledge so they can better advocate for themselves, even services for caregivers, so that way they can help with advocacy. So Rebloom would be my number one go-to, but I also have a number of favorites. Davis Finney, MSA Trust, Cure PSP, Michael J. Fox, the Parkinson's Foundation, all of those are online and have wonderful information available. But again, if that feels overwhelming, please understand that Melanie has like a little library of materials that are available, and people can always come to our center and observe what we're doing and ask questions. And it's a very warm, friendly environment because number one, to slow Parkinson's, exercise is absolutely needed. Number two, socialization is needed. And it's funny to realize that can make such a difference. But she's created a warm, inviting atmosphere at STARS, at the Parkinson's Health Center through Rebloom. And people, not just the people that work there, but people who go there, work with each other and support each other. We have support groups, both men's support groups and women's support groups. We have a caregiver support group. So we have a number of different programs. We even have this Friday, we have a program where we're going to play Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? And it's really just to encourage that socialization and enjoy spending time with each other and just use that big, strong voice around each other and just enjoy being together and helping each other out and spending some time where somebody that's there understands what you're going through.
So you mentioned that Rebloom is a nonprofit organization, and you also mentioned the Parkinson's Center. So is that one location in the county that you can tell people about?
It is. So the Parkinson's Health Center is located, it's the Parkinson's and Neurological Health Center, and it's located off of Lakeside Avenue. It's across from Publix, and now you're going to see that I'm geographically challenged because I'm going to list all the places near it. Near Mayday Ice Cream, behind Mayday Ice Cream, across from Publix, right there off of 312. And that is where Rebloom also provides a lot of services through that center. And so that's why you have a number of free classes available each and every week to encourage people to exercise and help slow that rate of progression.
So can you tell us that website again for people who are listening?
So the website for Rebloom. So the reps, I'm going to talk well, I promise. I'd be a great speech therapist if I could speak. It's rebloomcenter.org.
Now, I understand that you have an educational event coming up.
It's our 4th annual symposium, and we have a number of different speakers. The first speaker is going to talk about understanding mild cognitive impairment with Parkinson's, and she's going to give practical tips for both the patients that are experiencing this and their care partners. The next session, I find amusing the way that they're discussing it, but I also have seen them working on it, which is pretty wonderful. And that is Melanie and her team at STARS, her team of physical therapists that are going to have an introduction to falling safely. And so basically it says she's going to teach people how to fall gracefully. And I was thinking to myself, I don't have a graceful bone in my body. I think I need that as well. And then Dr. Matthew Rems, he's a movement disorder specialist from Norman Fiksell Institute in Gainesville. We'll talk about what's new in Parkinson's research. And then we're going to finish up our day with Dr. Ramon Rodriguez Cruz, and he's a movement disorder specialist at Neurology 1 in Orlando. And he's going to be talking about Crexont, a new program or a new medication administration that's available now that can make such a difference for our individuals with Parkinson's.
So is this event coming up soon?
It is. It's on the 29th of this month. It's from 8:45 to 1:45. And she has indicated her flyer says, learn, mingle, eat, have fun. And I have to be honest with you that these programs that she sets up are fun. They really are. Last year at the end, as a fundraiser for Rebloom, individuals had the opportunity to slime their therapists. And so we all took turns getting a little bit dirty for the sake of earning money for Rebloom for these programs that are made free through Rebloom.
And it looks like this program starts at 8:45 a.m. and goes to 1:45 p.m. It says also that seats are limited, so how should people register?
If you're interested in attending, please go to the website at rebloomcenter.org, and right there it'll say events, and you can click on events, and then you can click on that you want to receive seats, and you can ask for multiple seats for you and your family members so you can attend, and or maybe if you're just now looking into this for yourself, to attend and to learn a little bit more about Parkinson's.
Sounds great. And now is a good time to also let our listeners know that COA has a Parkinson's Meet, Greet, and Learn event for people living with Parkinson's and or their caregivers. And these are held the first Wednesday of each month at 3 p.m. at UF Health Nocatee, which is located at 351 Town Plaza Avenue in Nocatee. And for more information, you can visit the COA website, which is coasjc.org. and click on our caregiver support tab. And of course, you can always call us Monday through Friday at COA at 904-209-3700 and speak to one of our lovely receptionists. So we're very proud that we have warm and friendly receptionists to answer your phone call and help you figure out which resource that you need, or perhaps you need for your parents or loved ones or some that you're a caregiver for. So please give us a call to learn more about that. And I understand that Melanie sometimes comes to these Parkinson's meet, greet, and learn sessions.
Yes, she and Harley have attended. Now, Harley is one of our therapy dogs. We have both Harley, who Melanie works with, and then we have Rebel, who Sabrina works with. And so we have therapy dogs that specifically, we have a therapy dog and a facility dog. And both of them are wonderful, absolutely a dream. And one of the things that makes it so warm is as that communication and that interaction with animals. And I don't know about you all, but if I have an animal around me, I'm gravitated to that animal, and it lowers my anxiety, and it truly provides for me that interaction that makes me smile and makes me realize how wonderful life really is.
That's so true. Opens up your heart.
Yes, absolutely.
And
I am so thankful that we have both of those animals in our environment.
That's really cool. So I just want to make sure people understand, are there multiple locations of STARS Rehab?
Yes. And so if you are living, that we have a South Clinic that's off US 1, Mariner Health Way. And so it's by Wildwood. We have an Island Clinic. And the Island Clinic is across from where STARS was in the past. STARS opened many years ago, but it's on A1A Boulevard, and it is not as far as Crescent Beach, but it is there on A1A Boulevard. Central Clinic is right there near the movie theater on Strongway Court. The Parkinson's Neurological Health Center is off of 312 and across from the Publix. The World Golf Village Clinic is up north. And then we also have the Butler Beach Clinic that is farther down A1A, closer to Crescent Beach.
Wow. I counted 6.
Yes.
That's amazing. So you're bound to find a convenient location to go to STARS.
Absolutely.
And tell us again the STARS website.
So the STARS website is starsrehab.org.
Well, Debra, I'm so glad you came in. I want to just leave our conversation today and just remind people that you can reach COA's website at coasjc.org. Call us, 904-209-3700. We're at the end of our show for today. Thank you so much to Debra for being on with me, and thank you to WFOY for supporting our show. Join us again next week on the COA Radio Show, Thursdays at 8 a.m. on WFOY 102.1 FM. Have a great day, everybody.